Hello, everyone. Welcome to our course, Green Economy from China's Stories. In the last lesson, we learned about the major environmental issues and results of environmental governance in China. We came to a conclusion that the environment must be governed and managed together in a sustainable way. China's experience in the environmental governance is providing a Chinese plan and mode for environmental protection for the rest of the world. Please watch a video. China's environmental governance provides Chinese solutions for the world.
中国的生态文明建设成就早就引起了联合国环境署的关注。2016年5月，第2届联合国环境大会上，联合国环境规划署发布了题为《绿水青山就是金山银山：中国生态文明战略与行动》的报告。在这样级别的国际性的大会上，专门就一个国家的生态实践发布报告并不多见。报告称，如果成功践行生态文明理念，到2020年，中国的森林覆盖率将会达到近23%，用水量将减少23%，能源消耗减少15%，单位国内生产总值二氧化碳排放量降低18%。此外，与会的专家学者还表示，中国的生态文明建设是对可持续发展理念的有益探索和具体实践，为其他国家应对类似的经济、环境和社会挑战提供了经验借鉴。中国绿色发展为世界贡献了中国方案，这是对世界的一个创造。
Of course, a lot of good lessons can be drawn from global experience in the environmental governance. However, it took a long and hard time before we realized it. In the 1930s, public nuisance events took place in developed countries frequently, which alerted the world. High consumption economic growth is draining energy and resources, and climate change has become a global environmental issue. Based on the 3 stages, we will learn about 2 important events in this lesson: our common future and 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. The Industrial Revolution that began in the middle of the 18th century ushered human society into industrial civilization. Mankind earned huge material wealth through industrialization at heavy resource and environmental costs. Engels pointed out that the first need of steam engines and the main needs of almost all production departments in large industries are relatively pure water. But the factory and city turned all water into reeking sewage. 8 typical environmental public nuisance events in the world. Los Angeles photochemical smog is a typical example. The smog event in 1943 caused a significant increase in the number of deaths due to respiratory failure. More than 75% of citizens suffered from pink eye disease. At 2,000 meters above sea level and 100 kilometers away from the city, a large stretch of pine forest died. In a photochemical smog occurred in December 1952. More than 400 people aged 65 and above died in Los Angeles. In September 1955, due to atmospheric pollution and high temperature, in just 2 days, more than 400 people aged 65 and above died. It was not until 1970s that Los Angeles bore the label of Smog City of America. which still remains fresh in our memory today. Great Smog of London is also another typical example. During December 5 to 8, 1952, soot-based air pollution led to the formation of heavy smog in London. About 4,000 people died of respiratory diseases and other causes. 100,000 people got sick, and more than 8,000 people died 2 months later. The traditional economic growth mode, at the cost of high consumption of energy resources, has led to a serious crisis facing the world. In the process of traditional industrialization, a large number of pollutants were discharged, and a lot of energy, minerals, and fresh water were consumed immensely. As the global population keeps growing, more and more countries have entered the industrialization process. The shortage of energy and resources is increasingly prominent. Specifically, in the 1970s, 2 oil crises occurred and affected the whole world. The first oil crisis began in 1973 and lasted for 3 years, causing a severe impact on the economy of developed countries and slowing down their economic growth significantly. The second oil crisis began in 1979 and caused another economic recession in Western industrialized countries. We all know that fossil energy is non-renewable. Based on the world's petroleum production, reported in 1995, the current gross oil reserves in the world will be exhausted around 2050. By that time, there will be no oil available at all. The freshwater crisis is serious and getting worse day by day. Approximately 1.5 billion people in more than 80 countries are facing shortage of fresh water. 300 million people in 26 countries are living with water shortage. 3 billion people lack water sanitation facilities. And 3 to 4 million people die each year as a result of water-related diseases. By 2025, 3.5 billion people worldwide will struggle for water. With an increasing scarcity of water, the battle for water will be fiercer. The freshwater crisis may become the most serious environmental, security, and ecological issue in the 21st century. Climate change has become a global problem, and everyone should join hands to protect our homeland. Since the Industrial Revolution, fossil fuels have been used in large quantities, emitting large amounts of carbon dioxide, methane, and other greenhouse gases, and leading to significant climate changes, characterized by warming. According to observations, the global warming curve is consistent with the growth of carbon dioxide concentration. According to the Fourth Assessment Report of the UN Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC, the global average surface temperature has risen by 0.74 degrees C over the past 100 years, and may continue to rise by 1.1 to 6.4 degrees C in the next 100 years. Don't underestimate 0.74 degrees C and 1.1 degrees C. This is catastrophic to the world. The World Bank released a report in November 2012. By the end of this century, if no continuous countermeasures were taken against global temperature would rise by 4 degrees C, and the consequence would be catastrophic. We will be faced with storms, natural disasters, and earthquakes. To give 2 examples, our common home and 2030 Sustainable Development Framework. Our Common Future is a report issued by the World Commission on Environment and Development regarding the future of humanity. In February 1987, the Commission held the 8th meeting in Tokyo, Japan, where the report was passed. Later, it passed the debate at the 42nd General Assembly and was officially published in April 1987. The report is divided into 3 parts: common concerns, common challenges, and common endeavors. It focuses on population, food, species and genetics, resources, energy, industry, and human habitation. In the report, the concept of sustainable development is proposed. 3 key points are presented clearly throughout the report. 1. Environmental crisis, development crisis, and energy crisis are not separate. They are one. 2. The resources and energy on Earth are far from meeting the needs of human development. We have to review our demands. 3. We must make concerted efforts to change the development patterns for the benefit of present and future generations. The second typical example is the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. The 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development was officially launched on January 1st, 2016. The agenda calls on all countries to take action and strive to achieve the 17 Sustainable Development Goals in the next 15 years. The 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development was adopted at the 70th session of the United Nations General Assembly in 2016. 193 member states of the United Nations unanimously adopted the Sustainable Development Goals at the historic summit in September 2015. These goals address the needs of people in both developed and developing countries and emphasize that no one will be left behind. This extensive and ambitious agenda covers 3 dimensions of sustainable development: society, economy, and environment. Peace, justice, and efficient institutions are also incorporated. It also recognizes the importance of resource mobilization, including financial resources, technology development and transfer, capacity building, and the role of partnerships. 17 Sustainable Development Goals are set in total. The 2 cases provide us a common goal and a common idea: sustainable development. The 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development makes a common plan for mankind around the world. Thank you. See you next time.